the United States. Land of the free, home of the brave, and, let's be honest, the world's most confusing reality TV show masquerading as a country. Seriously, have you ever tried explaining U.S. politics to someone from, say, Beijing or Taipei? Yeah, good luck with that. I'm Yada, and I'll be your tour guide through this weird intersection of liberty, money, and, well, organizational dysfunction. Today, we're going to dive into why the U.S. seems so chaotic to outsiders. And spoiler alert, it's not magic. It's history, economics, and a pretty unhealthy obsession with private property.
You know, from the outside, especially if you're coming from a place that really values stability, the U.S. must look like an absolute mess. You've got the social divisions, the political gridlock, the constant protests. It honestly looks like a nation that's just perpetually on the verge of collapse. So the big question, the one a lot of people are asking, is how is this country not in a constant state of civil war?
Okay, so the answer really lies in this long, messy marriage between democracy and capitalism. Think about it. On one hand, you have democracy, which promises everyone a voice. On the other, you have capitalism, where the whole logic is about efficiency. And that pretty much guarantees that some people are going to get way more money than others. And somehow, these two completely opposing ideas were shoved together into this single experiment called the United States. And the result? Well, you get a nation where billionaires can fund political campaigns like they're buying a new video game, while the rest of us argue for months on social media about what some senator even meant. America's history is basically this soap opera of democracy trying to rein in capitalism, and capitalism trying to, buy democracy, while everyone else just watches the chaos unfold.
And this right here, this lays out that core tension perfectly. Look, on one side you've got democracy. Its whole logic is based on equality and rights. One person, one vote. The ideal is to protect the weak. But then you have capitalism over here, and it's driven by a totally different logic, efficiency and profit. Its goal isn't equality, it's that some get more than others. It's designed to reward the successful. For almost 250 years, these two systems have been locked in this constant power struggle that really defines everything about American society.
So who can we thank for the capitalist side of this equation? Well, mostly this guy, Alexander Hamilton. As the very first Secretary of the Treasury, he basically single-handedly built the financial engine of the United States. We're talking consolidating all the debt to establish national credit, creating the first central bank. He laid the entire foundation for the modern U.S. dollar and all of its capital markets.
But here's the real twist. Hamilton, the man who literally built the economic system, was deeply, deeply distrustful of the political one. He actually saw pure democracy as a disease. He was terrified that the common people, what he basically called the propertyless mob, were just too irrational. He thought they'd use their votes to just take the wealth of the elite, and in his mind, use democracy to tear down the very capitalist system he'd just created.
And for a little while, Hamilton's elite vision kind of held up. At first, voting was limited to white men who owned property. But over the next few decades, that democratic impulse just kept growing. First, Jeffersonian democracy started to expand the right to vote. Then in the 1830s, the era of Jacksonian democracy came along and pretty much got rid of property requirements for white men altogether. So yeah, Hamilton's absolute worst fear, the rise of the voting masses, was actually happening.
So the big question is, did it happen? Did the newly empowered masses vote to just dismantle the whole capitalist system, just like Hamilton was so afraid they would? And the answer, which is pretty remarkable, was no. In fact, the complete opposite happened. Giving more people a political voice didn't destroy capitalism at all, it supercharged it. By bringing farmers and small merchants and laborers into the political process, the system was forced to change. Capital became easier to get, new lands were opened up, and millions of people were brought into the economic mainstream. It created a way bigger, way more dynamic economy than Hamilton probably ever could have imagined. And this right here reveals a pattern that has repeated itself over and over again throughout American history. The chaos, it isn't random. It's actually a predictable cycle of conflict and resolution that's basically become the nation's core operating system. Think of this as the secret decoder ring for American history. It's a predictable 5-stage cycle. Stage 1, capitalism runs wild, creating huge amounts of growth, but also massive inequality. You get winners and losers. Stage 2, the losers in that boom get angry, they feel left behind, and they start to organize. Stage 3, all that anger explodes into intense political conflict. This is the mess that outsiders always see. Stage 4, the democratic system forces a really painful compromise, where the elites have to give some ground. And finally, Stage 5, this leads to a new era of more balanced prosperity, which of course just sets the stage for the whole cycle to begin all over again. All right, quick pause before we spiral any further into this madness. If you love dissecting global chaos with someone who kind of laughs at the absurdity of it all, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And please, leave a review. Tell us if we helped you understand America, or if you just want to complain about the snacks we chose while watching this episode. Either way, 5 stars keeps me motivated, and it keeps FireflyHaku from throwing my laptop into the nearest volcano.
Okay, so let's put this cycle to the test, right? By looking at 2 huge periods in U.S. history, we can actually see this 5-stage model in action, and it helps explain not just the turmoil of the past, but the chaos we're all seeing today. So the first great example is the Gilded Age, back in the late 1800s. Industrial capitalism created these insane fortunes, that's your stage 1. But it left farmers and factory workers totally behind, which led to populist and labor uprisings, that's stage 2. This tension all boiled over with the stock market crash of '29 and the Great Depression, the absolute peak of stage 3 conflict. So what was the response? Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. It was a massive, painful compromise where capitalism got reined in with social safety nets and regulations. That's stage 4. And the result of all that? The great post-war economic boom, a period of really shared prosperity. And that's stage 5.
So, that was then. Where are we now? Well, we are smack in the middle of another one of these cycles. The globalization and tech boom of the 90s and 2000s, that was stage 1. It created massive wealth, sure, but it also hollowed out the working class, leading to skyrocketing inequality, that's your stage 2. The 2008 financial crisis basically lit the fuse, kicking off stage 3, intense political polarization. Think Occupy Wall Street on the left, at the Tea Party and the rise of Donald Trump on the right, and what that means is that we, right now, are living through stage 4, the painful, the chaotic, and the deeply uncertain search for a new compromise.
So what does all of this mean? It means that the conflict, the chaos we see every day, it isn't a sign that the American system is broken. It's actually a sign that the system is working, as painfully as it might be. This chaos is the built-in self-correction mechanism. It's a feature, not a bug. To put it another way, just think of a country as a car, okay? Both the US and China, they use capitalism as the engine. That's what gives them power and speed. But the American model also has democracy, and that acts as the brakes and the steering wheel. When the car starts going too fast or veers off course, democracy lets the people hit the brakes and correct the direction. Yeah, it's a bumpy, chaotic ride, but it's adaptable. A system with only an engine and an accelerator, though, it can go really, really fast in a straight line. But the problem is, it has no way to slow down or change course when it's heading straight for a cliff.
So next time you see the US in the news, the protests, the crazy elections, the lobbying, the corporate logos on literally everything, just remember, it's probably not incompetence. It's a feature. It's a historical feature that's been coded over centuries of this democracy-capitalism tension with the occasional bug update we call civil unrest. And speaking of updates, this whole analysis was produced by FireflyHaku, the only person I know who can balance podcast production with explaining the stock market, all while somehow keeping their sanity intact. Which, let's be honest, is exactly the kind of skill you need to survive American chaos.
Thanks for tuning in, for laughing at history with me, and for pretending to understand how any of this makes sense. Stay skeptical, stay curious, and hey, remember, if the world thinks we're chaotic, at least we're entertaining.